throughout the past few years, cinemas have had many animated films, yet the majority of them are 3D. This style of animation, of course, originated with Pixar in the mid-90s, starting with Toy Story. At the time, the main animation style was 2D, but we still got a good amount of stop motion. But now, we hardly ever see stop motion or 2D, especially from big studios. Last year, though, was an important one where we did get some stop motion and we got some big changes for 3D. 2022 is the biggest year for stop motion, and while we got the Marcel movie, which is based on a book I really enjoyed as a child, but we also got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Both films were audience favorites, and as most know, Pinocchio took home the Best Feature nomination for animation, and it won. In cinemas, we haven't really had any 2D representation since Disney switched over to 3D. You may have your occasional anime movie in theaters, but never anymore with 2D animation. Just on its own, which is a shame, as it is something that I make and I enjoy watching to study and just for fun. Instead, 2D is saved for television. Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon keep making 2D shows, presumably because they're cheaper. But the recent Camp Coral show from SpongeBob is slightly worrying. It is a 3D cartoon, which, if becomes mainstream, could mark the end of 2D animation as a whole. Now, the show looks bad, but we're saying the same thing about AI right now, so. And 2D animation has its own soul and character, which is hard to capture in 3D. It's hard to explain, but I think it comes down to the 12 rules of animation. Well, of the 12 rules of animation, you can capture most inside 3D because most of them are just doing with timings. But the 10th rule it just can't really work in 3D. The 10th principle of animation is exaggeration. It's the idea of, for example, if you're trying to punch, your fist might get bigger, more cartoonish. Or someone's hit on the head, they get that big bump. There's also another rule called squash and stretch, which is basically if you're swinging a sword, the sword should change its shape as it moves, so the movement feels more organic. These two principles are hard to do in 3D because they would involve making new character rigs or basically changing something that's supposed to stay static in the whole model. I think it explains why 3D feels inherently different to 2D and stop motion, and it's because it's too hard or too expensive or just wouldn't fit the ultra realistic look if it's embraced so heavily by 3D, so it stays static. And that's the shame that 2Ds and stop motion are becoming rare to find. Although I love watching Disney shows like The Owl House or Gravity Falls, I want to see 2D movies again. Disney's next movie is just such a big slap in the face because it's supposed to celebrate 100 years of Disney, but just looks like a Disney Junior animation, which was their attempt to try to mix the two mediums of 2D and 3D. I think everyone would have loved another chance at 2D, even if it was just one last film, and, well, it probably would gain more money than I'm guessing what Wish will, seeing as all their animated films recently have just been bombing. But, although I have been hating on 3D so far, I don't think it's a bad thing. In my past two videos in the saga, I've been praising the advancements in 3D, where it's going, and how it's a good thing. Ever since Toy Story 3D, it's been about getting the most photorealistic. But finally, studios are changing course to stylize that 3D. With films like Spider-Verse leading the trend, animation is being revolutionized. The genre is finally starting to diversify a bit. We have Disney Pixar, which is probably the worst, not bad, but nothing special. And then we have the stylized frame rate changers who are trying to make films more like TD and DreamWorks and Sony. Now, I still think we need to diversify more. Like in 2D, we have every different style of drawing, then add an artist in their own styles, and you have limitless amount of style. And in stop motion, you also have a big variety, again, just depending on the sculptures and what style you want to go for that. So, if we want to see the best of 3D, studios just can't copy Disney or Sony's style, but they need to do their own thing. Everyone always has been trying to just one-up each other at the same thing with 3D, and it leaves a fairly similar branch of animation throughout every studio. Although I love the Spider-Verse style, I fear in 5 years down the line, when every studio tries to do it, it will become the default, and that will become boring. But the whole point of animation, there is no default. It's a bad thing when two projects look exactly alike, and it feels like this is standard with 3D. Each of the revolutions only brings the styles closer together instead of diversifying them like they should. And there lies the biggest problem with the ever-growing power of the 3D animation industry. Although there are many that are very beautiful, the styles that are produced are very limited and they're always similar to each other. Since 3D needs computers to generate characters and backgrounds and everything in the world, they're much harder to stylize, and when they are, these styles are copied and used by everyone, which gives us less diversity in the animation that we consume. And even worse, we're trading our 2D and stop motion animation for a much more limited 3D, which ends up leaving us with a stagnant animation field, which is a very hit or miss in the box office as well. And of course, I hope the solution is simple to y'all. Don't axe 3D animation, don't axe 2D animation, don't axe stop motion animation. With this animation saga, I've been pushing for animation to become more mainstream, and to get rid of any style of animation is a bad thing. So that is why 3D taking over is such a problem. And it's just getting rid of types of animation and more chances for animation to get more widely accepted. I love 3D and hopefully soon it can improve, but alongside the other styles of animation. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio really woke me up to the possibility of stop motion animation, for example, a style I haven't seen since I was really young. What they managed to do there, especially with how they animated Pinocchio's character, was look like it's made out of wood. I'm not sure if it was, but that's so impressive. And I hope to see the industry advance as well as every other type of animation. Anyways, though, that's all I have to say. What do you think? Do you have a favorite style of animation? Is it 2D, 3D, stop motion? Is there a style I missed? That would be embarrassing. Let me know all that and more in the comments down below, as well as what I should do next in the animation saga, if it's Spider-Verse or anything else. If you want to see the previous episode of the animation saga where I cover the need to tell different types of stories with animation inspired by Intergalactic, check out this video. Subscribe to see more videos on animation as a media as a whole. Thanks for watching. I've been Fictional Fanatics. I'll see you in the next one, but until then, bye!